So I have some opinions. Alright, so I haven't done one of these kind of like random rambling on kind of videos in a very long time. It hasn't been, or it has been about 10 years or so now. But when I used to do these kind of videos back in the day, I always got like at least double digit views on them. Sometimes I got a couple hundred on them. Which is kind of frustrating because I see that from back then, and I know now that if I applied myself, I could probably have been one of those multimillionaire YouTuber celebrities right now. But anyway, so I have some opinions and some stuff that I want to talk about. I also have a pile of stuff here that needs repair. I have this too. I don't know if I'm going to get to this one. And this is all just stuff that I can do by hand, and I've just been procrastinating. And I also have some rosé. I drank my daily limit of tea earlier, so I moved on to something a little bit stronger because I have some thoughts. So I figured I would sit down, talk about some stuff, work on some of these projects. And if you're the kind of person that just kind of likes to have something on in the background while you're sewing or while you're doing anything, just as some background noise, this video is going to be for you. This is not going to be for actively sitting here and watching me because it's not going to be that exciting. So yeah, feel free to go get yourself a glass of wine if you're old enough, or have some tea. And feel free to join me. And if you have some projects that you've been meaning to get to work on and you've just been procrastinating because you don't feel like it, go get those and maybe we can get some stuff done together. Alright? So just real quick, this is the first thing I'm going to work on. I've had this dress for years. I got it for $7 from H&M. It was on sale, and I've worn it so many times. I love it. I've worn it in 2 different plays, one play and one musical, and I just really like the shape of it. But the zipper part on the bottom broke a couple of years ago, and we had to hurry up and sew it together to try to fix it like 30 seconds before I walked on stage. So it's just been kind of falling apart. So now I'm just going to take the time and sew that together. So the idea for this video really came about when last night I was making, you might be able to see it hanging up right there, my shark shorts. And I don't know if this is just me kind of projecting my own insecurities onto the industry, because I am unhappy with my body, and I can tell that's something that's hurting me when I'm sewing, is because I'm so busy focusing on how I look in the garment, and if something's not working perfectly on my body, I get very frustrated with it, and I don't want to finish it anymore, and I don't want to wear it. So it's been really frustrating trying to work with a project like that where it's supposed to be very, very fitted and it's just not fitting. And then I started kind of thinking over the last couple of projects that I've taken on, and I have some mixed feelings about the whole commercial pattern industry right now. So I guess I'll go back. So I was making a bunch of shirts, and I don't know if those videos went up yet or if they'll be up by the time this one goes. Also, sorry, future Sam, for having to edit this into some sort of something that makes any sort of sense. So I was looking at that shirt pattern, and that worked out really well because it was just one size. There wasn't a small line to cut out, there wasn't a large line, it was just the medium. And that's how patterns used to be way back in the day, but I thought back in the 90s, which I think that pattern was from, I figured that would be kind of a thing of the past by then, but I don't know. So I really like when patterns are like that because then you don't have to worry about potentially cutting out lines in case you want to make the pattern again later in a different size, which is something that you have to worry about when you have patterns with 4 different sizes, side grades on them. Which, that being said, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about the most, is the sizing grades. So, on the back of all of the pattern sizes, or all the pattern pieces, is the measurements that they recommend and your corresponding size. And it usually goes pretty specifically. So, right now I have a 30-inch waist. So I'm usually in a size like 16 or 18. And from what I understand is going on, and just what I think is happening, is these clothing sizes match what the clothes sizes used to be back in like the 50s and the 60s before vanity sizing happened. Regardless, if the sizes and the measurements that they have on the back of the pattern are so specific that, you know, a measure of half an inch or an inch is a difference between sizes, I feel like the pattern should be made accurate to those sizes. But in the past couple of patterns, they've all been huge. And on different pattern pieces, usually it's on the biggest ones or the big main pieces, just because that has the most room. They talk about ease, and it's how much extra ease you have in the garment above the sizes. And if some things just don't add up, some things just don't measure up. For example, the vintage reprint, what was it? McCall's, I'm looking at it over there. The blouse and the jumper that I just made. Yeah, I made the blouse to fit the XL because that's what matched my measurements, but it was enormous. It was like a tent, and I had to take it in. And with the amount that I had to take it in, I might as well have just made the small. And then I cut out the collar for the XL fit the small size, which that was really weird. I didn't like that at all, and I talked about that in the video. I don't think that fit well. And it's just kind of frustrating that when you're buying these patterns from these huge commercial companies that take professional pattern makers, these are people who usually they go to school and they specialize in pattern making, and they've been doing it for years, and they're truly experts in their field. So when I'm paying, or rather when they're selling these patterns for over $20 a piece, which don't ever buy a commercial pattern for that much. Like, wait until they go on sale. Joann's always has sales, and you can get patterns for like $1.99 or even 99 cents sometimes. So don't ever put down $25 on one of the big name company patterns. Just don't do it. You know. And I don't know if that's been a recent thing where the sizes just don't match up, because I understand having ease and building ease into a garment, because it's always better, or it's so much easier to take things in than it is to let them out. So if you make something and it's too big, just make the seams a little bit bigger, take it in at the seams, and you'll be able to kind of fix it. But I feel like I shouldn't have to, when in theory I would be paying for the expert pattern makers and for them to have taken care of everything. I don't know if I'm really making that much sense right now. I should make sure I don't. Yeah, the zipper's up there. Wow, okay. And another thing, sewing has gotten so ridiculously expensive nowadays. Like, I don't know, I don't think it's always been like this, because my mother is one of the most frugal people on the planet. You know, we've been very blessed. We have never had to worry about money. We've never been in a position where we had to worry about our next meal. You know, we've always had everything we needed and then some. But she's just the kind of person that doesn't understand spending a lot of money on things like clothes. Because in her mind, she's like, well, why should I, you know, buy you this nice Christmas dress that's $250 when we can just go to Sears and get one off the clearance rack for $25? It's still a Christmas dress. You know, she just doesn't really go for spending a whole lot of money. So knowing that back in the day, and when I was little, she sewed most of my clothes. She sewed a whole bunch of sundresses that I wore until I outgrew them, and even then a little bit after. So the fact that she spent so much time and effort sewing and making clothes for me, it had to have been more cost effective back then than it did now. Because there's no way that you can, you know, it's almost more expensive to make a piece of clothing than it is to just go buy one. And that might be the problem with fast fashion and the whole moral and ethical issue there, which I am trying to get out of, but, you know, when you see a cute shirt that's on sale for $5, it's really hard to turn it down. And I guess that's also a pro of making your own clothes, is you know the conditions in which the clothes were made. Don't know if it's the same about fabric. I haven't really looked into that much, because honestly, I don't want to know. That makes me a terrible person, because I'm living in a place of privilege where I don't have to endure sweatshop conditions, and that's not something that affects me directly. And, you know, I like to live in a world where that's not something I even have to think of, because it doesn't exist, but we do. back on track. So, from what I can gather and what I can kind of logically think through, is that for my mother to have sewn as many clothes for me as she did, and she made every single one of my Halloween costumes, every school play costume I've ever had, she has made. And for her to have justified doing that, it had to have been cost effective. And nowadays, it's just not. So, there are big stores like Joann's. I always talk about Joann's, but, Joann's has these huge mega sales, and you can get fabric for really cheap. Like, I was just going through the bargain rack, and I got almost 5 yards of this, and this is going to be my new mock-up fabric for $2.50 a yard, not even. So if you go and you look for the deals and you look for everything, it's fine. But if you, live in a place where you don't have any of that nearby, you either have to buy stuff online, which isn't that instant gratification feeling, and you have to wait to work on a project. And if you run out in the middle, you gotta wait a couple of days before you can get back into it. Anyway, the long, convoluted point that I'm trying to make is when you're making clothes nowadays, it's like you have to make them twice. And I understand for garments like, if you're making something really important like a wedding dress or a prom dress or something big and has a lot of complicated stuff, yeah, you're definitely going to want to make a mock-up so that you know what you're doing by the time you get to the final product. But if you're making something like those shorts that, really shouldn't be all that complicated and should come fitted pretty well straight out of the pattern, why do I have to make 2 garments and spend twice as much time, and I have to waste fabric making it twice for a pattern that should, in my opinion, should fit straight out of the box? And if you're making and if the grading is so tiny and so precise and so minute that, the difference between one size and another is, 3 millimeters on the tissue paper, then why do we even bother having to use the measurements that you're given and not the standard measurements? I don't know. I hope y'all understand what I'm trying to say, because I am having trouble finding exactly the words that I want to hear, or that I want to say. So I also haven't tried many like indie and independent publishers and their patterns, so I don't know if it would be the same for them, but I find it almost easier to draft patterns myself nowadays, because looking back, the few projects that I absolutely love how they turned out and I wear more often than anything else, with the exception of the Hawaiian shirts that I made, because I do wear those all the time, are the ones that I self-drafted. It's my broccoli rectangle skirt that I made last year, I think. I wear that all the time. And the, my winter cape, I don't think I uploaded a video on it because I never actually finished it. But I wore that all winter, and those were both self-drafted. They were guided with tutorials from other people here on YouTube, and if this makes it in the final cut, I'll link those. But, it doesn't make sense anymore to use these commercial patterns if you have to change them. And that's part of the reason you go with making your own clothes instead of just trying to buy things, is because you can customize them and you can change them. And for people who don't have normal proportions, so people like me. So for instance, my torso is very, very long. That's why I had to start making my own clothes in the first place, because my torso is so long that dresses off the rack in regular stores, they just don't fit. They just don't. So knowing that, and knowing that I will always have to alter a pattern, you reach a point where you get so used to it that you kind of just know how to do it automatically. So for me, I always know I have to drop the waist by at least 3/4 of an inch, usually closer to an inch. And that's something that I can just do automatically. But when I have to spend so much time, like with these pleats, and I have to rearrange the pleats and make them smaller, make them bigger, and try to accommodate them, and then it doesn't even match up to the final garment. So I went off on a bit of a rant in my other video. I don't know if I'm going to leave it in, but the waistband on the shorts that I just made is perfect exactly to the measurement that they have on the back of the paper. But the shorts, the way that I made them, and even though I let them out by, probably 3 inches, they were still like 4 or 5 inches on each side too big. So there's no way that would have fit in with the waistband. And it's really frustrating when you have these professionally made and designed patterns that go through testing and go through constant quality control, like you assume, and they don't work out and they don't fit, and you have to go through so much effort to fix them yourself. Like, why even bother buying the pattern at this point when you know you're just going to have to basically self-draft it and you're going to have to make huge alterations to it. So that's just how I feel about that part of the issue. There's a whole lot of other issues. And maybe I'm just getting upset about this because I am so unhappy with myself right now that when I see things not fitting right, I just kind of assume it's my body not looking the way that it should. But that's also not a healthy thing to go through and to deal with. So, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on all of this, on the whole commercial pattern thing? Because I don't know. It's one of those, what's the subreddit, am I the asshole? Like, am I just being picky here? Am I being irrational here? Because I think it just all comes down to... I don't know, maybe this is a modern thing, because I also feel like, you know, she wouldn't have told me about it because, you know, I was 6 years old, but I don't remember my mom having all of these huge fitting issues with the stuff that she would make me. I don't remember her talking about, like, things just straight up don't fit. You know, and maybe it's because I was younger, and when you have children's sizes, they're a little bit bigger and a little bit boxier and a little bit baggier, so kids can grow into them, but I don't know. The whole thing just makes me really frustrated. Another thing that kind of frustrates me when I see commercial patterns, and I talked about it in the Vintage Vogue pattern that I did a video on. I think that one's up. That one should be up. I don't really remember. It's the checker print dress that I really didn't like how it turned out. I feel like there's this weird mix of, when you buy a commercial pattern, they're marketed towards people who, you know, they definitely have some sewing experience, but not a whole lot. Because I feel like if you have a whole lot of sewing experience, you would just draft your own pattern, because you would know at this point that modern patterns just don't work out properly. And I feel like, because I know with Vogue and the Vintage Vogues, I was reading into it, and what they do is they take extant garments and dresses that they have in their collection or in someone else's private collection, and then they pattern off of those and they just recreate them, which means that I don't think they had the original pattern for that dress. So when you had, for instance, the really interesting detail on the bust when it came up and it made a corner and you had to reinforce the corner, like, it was a really cool like technique, and I'm glad I learned how to do it. But at the same time, there were a lot of extra finishing steps that they didn't talk about in the pattern that you really needed to do. So I don't know. I don't quite know who the target audience of a lot of these patterns and the pattern instructions are, because the way that they're laid out is they make you think that, oh, this is super easy, anyone can do it, this is for beginners or like people who have a little bit of experience. But then they leave out crucial steps like, oh, you're going to want to go in with a hand needle and reinforce the seam, or, oh, you're going to want to do this by hand so that you can match things up better. And I feel like in this day and age that the big pattern companies are going to take a huge hit, because there are so many people on YouTube who are recreating gowns and recreating dresses and just showing you how to make your own patterns and make your own everything, that you don't really need to go out and buy these patterns anymore. And the people who are doing it online are so good at it that they're able to tell you, like, hey, use this measurement, multiply it by whatever you need to be able to get this, measure around your waist at this point to find this, measure around your hips to find this, and that translates into this measurement, and you're going to draw this out this way. So, I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to see where the patterning industry goes in the next couple years. Based on the whole YouTube fad, but I also hope that they kind of get better with their sizing and their consistency in sizing. Because I think also what's happening is I feel like a lot of the patterns are made by like different houses and they each have their own standard, but it's not standard to the company itself. Because even once you get in the pattern, I've had a couple of patterns recently where you open it and they have not just the final garment measurements, but they have like your measurements and what size that they match up to, but it's printed on the pattern and it doesn't match what's on the envelope. So that's a little frustrating. I don't know. I feel like sewing has just in general become so inaccessible to the masses now because, you know, back in the day, everyone sewed their own clothes. Or not everyone, but, you know, you would know how to sew a dress. And, like, home ec classes were a thing. I took probably one of the last home ec classes that my high school offered. It's been replaced by culinary science, I think, because it was one semester of sewing and then one semester of cooking. I think they called it food. I don't think they even called it cooking. One semester of food. So I learned how to make pajama pants and pillows, and that was about it. I made a purse as like an independent project, but that was about it. And I feel like there are so many important skills that you learn from sewing. And I mean, at some point, everyone's going to have to sew on a button because buttons will always fall off of shirts. They will always fall off of dresses. This one fell off of this dress, which is what I'm doing now. I got this dress on sale for like, I don't know, $12 when Sears went out of business. And I really like it, but the button on the cuff fell off, so I couldn't really wear it properly. So now I'm fixing that. And I don't know, I just have whole kind of some reservations because part of the reason that my generation is, and baby boomers, in case any of y'all are out there, like, baby boomers love to talk crap about my generation. They like to say, my generation, oh, we're killing this industry, we're killing this industry, millennials are killing this industry. And the thing is, we're realizing more now how much our actions affect the rest of the world. So millennials are kind of trying to stay away from fast fashion, I think, or at least the ones that I'm seeing on like Instagram and Facebook and all that, because fast fashion is made in basically sweatshops. It's legal slavery. And one of the advantages to sewing that I talked a little bit about earlier is when you're making your own clothes, you know the conditions that you're in when you're sewing your own clothes. So, you know, I know right now when I'm sewing this and I'm mending this button, I am not being paid for my time to sew this button, but, you know, I have food in my pantry, I have electricity, I have running water. I'm broke because I'm fresh out of college and I only work part-time, but I, you know, don't have to worry about my lights getting turned off. I know I have food for dinner tonight, and I clearly have enough money for rosé. But I feel like millennials and also Gen Z are just starting to get more involved with seeing how our actions affect the world around us. So, you know, trying to get out of fast fashion involves sewing your own clothes, but we also not everyone has access to the kind of fabrics and techniques that you need to be able to make these long-lasting clothing articles. Because I would love to have my entire closet just be things that I made that I know fit me perfectly. But if you look back in time, you'll see that it isn't really until very recently, when the whole mass production fashion thing started to happen, that usually people only had like 2 or 3 dresses that they wore all the time. And even further back than that, you know, ignoring French aristocracy and all that and the monarchy and all those people. But you look back on it and people always had, you know, maybe 2 or 3 gowns or 2 or 3 sets of clothes, and that was it. You know, they would maybe replace them a couple times in their life, but for the most part, that was it. And this is just a pair of work pants that I have to hem. This might not even be the right set of pants. This is not the right set of pants. I have some... There it is on the bottom. Okay. And this is a pair of just black work slacks that I have to hem real quick. And I think, because with the whole like mass production of clothes and things like that, alright, so my camera just decided to stop recording. I have no idea where it left off. So one of the things that's kind of messed up about today is just really how expensive making clothes is, because it takes so much time, and when you only have a certain number of hours in the day, and you know, people nowadays, like it or not, are struggling in this economy. We don't, you know, I barely make ends meet on my own. I'm still getting money from my mom to help cover my bills, because just from my job, I make just my portion of rent. That doesn't cover helping out with utility bills, that doesn't cover groceries, that doesn't cover gas, it just covers my rent. So knowing that I only have so much time in the day, it's really hard to justify taking the time to sew clothes and to piece everything together and to make it work and to troubleshoot and to problem solve and fix patterns that you shouldn't have to be fixing in the first place. It's really hard to justify spending time on stuff like this instead of trying to find ways to make more money or trying to find ways to, you know, make or do a side hustle or something like that. So the fact that it takes, you know, so much just time to sew, in addition to how much money it is to buy good quality materials and to buy the patterns and to buy probably twice as much as what you need of materials, because you're going to want to make a mock-up, and even if you make the mock-up out of like cheap muslin or something, it's still a decent amount of money to buy, you know, muslin, and then the more you're sewing, the more you're going to use, and then the more you need to replenish it, and it's just a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort that my generation doesn't have. So why spend the time sewing and trying to do stuff like this when I can just, you know, go to the mall and buy a pair of jeans for $25? So I feel like that's a lot of the issues that I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I have no idea if this video is actually going to get posted, if I'm actually going to edit this and post this, but I don't know. I might title it, I want to title it Stitching and Bitching, but that's not going to go over well, because somehow my family always finds everything I do on the internet, and they are very incredibly conservative Catholics. Not the fun kind of Catholics like Jesus was. They're the pain in the ass kind of Catholics. I am also Catholic, but I'm the fun kind of Catholic. One of the things I would really love to do is I would love to start up a business where I make like custom well-made clothes for people that is going to last them a very long time, but that's just not the fashion anymore, and it's really frustrating. Because, you know, the big thing that I would want to do is I would want to do gowns. I'd want to do wedding gowns, I would want to do prom gowns, but, you know, when you tell people that, yeah, I'll make your, or no one's actually asked me to do this yet, but, you know, when you go to Dillard's and you can find really, really nice gowns for like $400 or $600 or under $1,000, and when someone comes to you wanting a custom-made couture gown, they expect it to cost, you know, comparable to what you could get off the shelf. So, you know, they expect to only pay you like $300, $400, $600. So when you tell people that to get a custom gown like that will cost them close to $1,000, like $2,000, maybe $3,000, then you're going to lose your business, because they're like, no, I'm not going to pay that much when I can go get something at Dillard's for $700, which is kind of frustrating, because that kind of kills my business idea before I even get to it. Although I will say it is really nice when I show up to really anything and I have something that I made on, and people are like, oh my god, I love your dress, where'd you get it? And I say, oh, I made it. And they're like, what? You made it? But it's so nice. That is a really good feeling, I will say. I would love to own kind of like a couture boutique where basically I just make gowns by hand for people. I would love that. I want to learn to tailor. I want to learn how to make suits because I feel like especially in like the frat boy industry, I say it like it's an industry, oh my god, but I feel like in like in the fraternity circles, like, I feel like there's a good market for suits made of like really weird print fabric. So that's something I would like to learn how to do. I think would be a good use of my time, but I'd have to spend so much time actually learning how to do it that might not be worth it. This whole social media influencer culture is just so absolutely wild to me. Like, there are people who get paid just to exist, basically. And, like, everything that they do is sponsored, and somebody's paying them to say their product or their brand. And, you know, people make hundreds of thousands of dollars per Instagram post, and it's just insane. Like, how do you get to that level where you can justify charging people to speak about them? Like, I don't know. Because, I mean, sponsored videos are cool because, like, you can kind of go off and do your own thing, and you'll say, like, oh, this video is sponsored by blah, blah, blah. Here's a related business and some discount codes for y'all. Like, that's pretty cool, but I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of frustrated because I've been looking back on, like, my life and all the things that I've done and seeing a lot of the view counts and a lot of the interactions that I got on old videos from when I was just dicking around in my living room, randomly talking to a camera like I am now, but just on the floor in my living room with my school sweatshirt on inside out so that my logo wouldn't show so they couldn't revoke my diploma, which I have my bachelor's of science now, so if I wanted to, I could talk all the shit about my high school, and I don't know. Do I plan on doing it anytime soon? Not really. Will I if given the opportunity? Absolutely. Revoke my high school diploma, see if I care. I hated every second of high school. Do you remember back in, like, the good old days of YouTube, back in, like, 2008 or 2009, when just everyone was a blogger? And the only, like, way you got revenue was from, like, your AdSense and your ad revenue? Half the time, people didn't even do that. Which, alright, now I guess I'm going off on a YouTube tangent. YouTube has gotten so insane, and YouTube has pretty much built their brand and built their platform to these people who are already huge influencers. Like, if you don't already have a huge following and, you know, hundreds of thousands of followers going into it, you're not going to make it on YouTube. And I'm not even here for the money. I just want to help people out. So my whole thing that I kind of want to do right now is I just want to test a whole lot of patterns. I want to sew through them. I want to troubleshoot. I want to let people know, hey, here's where the problem is. Here's where you're going to have to play around with things. This is how I fix this problem. That's what I want to do, so that when people have a pattern that they want to sew and they maybe don't have the time to go make a full mock-up of everything, they can just type in the pattern number and hopefully my video will pop up and they can watch and see what I did and see the problems that I had so that I can make all the mistakes so they don't have to. That's kind of what I want my whole thing to be. I make the mistakes so you don't have to. But I guess it's really frustrating now. And just earlier today, I was going back through some of my old videos that I unlisted all of the ones before, like, 2016. I think my earliest listed video right now is my point shoe references video that I made a couple of years ago. But I had a lot of really old videos that were kind of funny. It's funny to look back on now. It was definitely cringy, but anyway. But, like, I was getting a decent amount of views, but I think I maxed out at, like, 1,200 on my most popular video, which is more than I get now, which is really weird. But anyway, like, I would get videos straight up banned because they had copyrighted content in them, because I mixed, you know, less than 90 seconds of a copyrighted song into it. Because that was the thing that you did. You had, you know, that was the thing back in the, like, 2008, 2009, was you had, you know, kind of random strings of music, and you would do little random little random bits and tidbits. That's what I was trying to say. Bits and tidbits. I need more wine. Is you were trying to do little random things because that was the thing. And like nowadays, if you play, like I think it's Simply Nailogical, like she posted her own cover and she like badly covered a song with her own lyrics or something and the whole video got demonetized. Like I don't get monetized. I don't get ad revenue off of my videos right now. If my traffic starts picking up, I might consider it, you know, make an extra $5 a year, whatever. But like for people who this is their job and YouTube is their job, like losing out on ad revenue for one video that gets like 2 or 3 million views like they normally do, like that's a huge hit. And YouTube just isn't small creator friendly anymore. Not that it ever was like overly small creator friendly, but it went from being like small creator not friendly to small creator hostile, that's the better word. And I feel like social media in general just is small creator hostile. Because unless you know somebody or you have connections and you can get, you know, a shout out from a famous person and get 40,000 followers in a day, like, unless you have that kind of connection, there's no way to really grow your page. Because when you have niche interests like sewing, for example, there's really only one community and it's relatively small. So when you have a small community like this, they all kind of follow each other, and you reach a point where, you know, there's really no one new joining the group. So if you want to grow, you have to expand, and you have to expand outside, you know, the people that you normally cater to. You have to find a way to make your content relatable to people who aren't in your particular realm of the internet. You know, and it's one of those things where YouTube and all of the jobs associated with it are definitely for people. Like, you definitely have to be entertaining. You have to be ready to, I don't know. It almost feels like you have to be ready to sell your soul to be able to get anywhere nowadays. And that's really disheartening because I feel like you have to do some shady stuff to be able to get to the point where you can be, you know, honest and true and sincere. And I'm going to go get more wine and finish this thought. So it just occurred to me that I did not come back and finish this thought. So I got myself a biscuit, and it's after I finish the whole rest of the video and all my stuff. And my boyfriend's probably going to be home at any moment now and hear me ranting alone to a camera. Anyway, so it almost seems like nowadays that you have to be involved in something dramatic to get views. Because I'm really into the beauty community, and I've been following the beauty community for a very long time now. And like there are certain people that no matter what, they always get views. And if you talk about these certain people, you always get views. So that's people like Jeffree Star. That's people like James Charles. That's people like Jaclyn Hill and Manny MUA and Patrick Starr and people like that. And it seems like you have to be dramatic. You have to be a part of a scandal. You have to put in your thoughts on a scandal to be able to get views. But if you're a smaller influencer and you don't want to participate in that kind of stuff, it feels like you have to kind of sell yourself out a little bit in the beginning. And I don't like that at all because, like I said, I haven't been big enough at all to get any sort of offers other than when I was a minor. I had a lot of creepy old men commenting on my feet and asking for feet pics and all that. We won't get into that right now. That's an entirely separate video. Which now that I'm an adult and of consenting age, let me know if you want feet pics. I need money. Oh God, why did I just say that? Anyway, because it seems like to get your start and to get your kind of startup money that you need to be able to do something good, you need to kind of sell yourself out, and you need to take any sponsorship opportunities that come your way. And I feel like when you start out doing these sponsored posts and that's what people know you from, and from taking these sponsorships, it's really hard to kind of break away from that and convince people that you're doing things for yourself and that you're not trying to push anybody else's agenda and that you're not trying to push your opinions onto other people because people are paying you to do that. And it's so hard to to have integrity as a creator nowadays, to be able to truly give your own honest opinions, and to be able to talk honestly about products and about services and about other things, because you might not always say what the companies want to hear. So the companies are going to put their money and they're going to put their effort into the people who are saying things that they want to hear. So I feel like it's just so hard to have some kind of integrity. And that's just my own opinion from the outside. I haven't experienced anything like that. Like, my last couple videos have combined maybe 25 views. And I don't really do this for the views nowadays, but it is really frustrating when I spend so much time and so much effort into producing content that I think will help people, but it's such a niche audience and such a small group of people that I think would be relevant, my content would be relevant for. And it's definitely, I think part of it is the YouTube algorithm, because back in the day, like 10 years ago, I never really tagged any of my videos. If I tagged them, I would tag like my name and generic stuff like dance, ballet, and I would tag like the names of the songs and the artists of the songs, but I wouldn't like go through all the crazy like sub for sub like for like all of those tags. And now I'm like actually actively trying to tag my videos with like sewing, how to, DIY, sew along, and like things that are very relevant, and I'm not getting anywhere near the views that I used to. Which, granted, might just be because in the past 10 years, YouTube has grown so much. There are so many more people now producing so much more content than there was 10, 15 years ago. And technology has advanced that pretty much every laptop you buy now has a webcam. Every phone now, like, smartphones are standard now. They weren't 10 years ago, but now they are. So everyone has access to these high quality cameras and high quality recording equipment that they just didn't have 10 years ago. And it's just so frustrating knowing that, like, if I had applied myself and if I kept up with it, like, I probably could have been, one of those big YouTube influencers. Would that have happened? Probably not, because that's a 1 in a million thing, and that's not something you should ever aspire to as a career, because, 10 years from now, it might not be a career. YouTube might go under in 6 or 7 years, which I really wouldn't be surprised at. Or rather, I would be surprised at, just based on the sheer number of ads that shows up on YouTube and the ad space, like, available on YouTube, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I feel like, another going off on a tangent, but I put YouTube on kind of in the background when I'm driving so I can have my music playing. But the fact that there are ads now at the beginning and the end of every video, and sometimes there are at the between the video, like, I can get 3 ads in a row. And what's the difference between that and the radio now? It's really frustrating. Alright, back to Past Me. I had a job for a while. I don't know if I'm still under the NDA because I didn't read the fine print, but I had a job for a while where I had to wear black pants every day. So that's why I have so many pairs of black slacks. Let's see. Right. And it's so weird with the whole YouTube and influencer culture right now. And canceled culture is the big thing, and everybody's talking about it, and it's like, you make one mistake and then people dig up. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be you make a mistake or you say something that you shouldn't or anything. But just people will dig up the most insane stuff from the longest time ago and just spin it way out of proportion. And like, some things are always wrong. I'm gonna edit that out before I say something I regret, and then this winds up in a Sam Patel is canceled video like 10 years from now. I feel like cancel culture is so weird. Because on the one hand, yeah, some things are always bad and always wrong, but on the other, like, give me one person, name one person who hasn't done something stupid or said something stupid and hurtful in their youth. The point is, you're supposed to learn from these experiences and grow from them. And when you see other people, like, it's okay to learn from other people's experiences. And I feel like a lot of people aren't kind of getting that nowadays. Because there are some things that, I don't know, I feel like people are more afraid of doing bad things because people will find out and they'll be canceled, rather than doing bad things because worried about doing bad things because it's a bad thing. I don't know. And it's the same thing, like, I feel like a lot of people nowadays are so concerned with doing good things to keep up good appearances and to make them look better than to actually do good things for the sake of being good. Which, another reason that I'm thinking a lot about stuff like this is I just came from a Section 508 ADA compliance workshop, which is, for those of you who don't know, Section 508 is the Americans with Disabilities Act. We're mainly, or my department that I work for now is mainly concerned with people with visual impairments. So people who are blind, people who are colorblind, and it's actually really interesting to see like how much different their world is from my own. And it's things I never would have thought about. And it's really cool to learn about some things. Like we learned about, there's a like a live, I forgot the name of it. I should have written it down, but I didn't have a notepad with me. Like a auto refresh braille thing. I don't remember the actual name of it, but it's really cool. It's a neat little device, and it can hook up to your computer, and it has this this little section of a board, and it has holes in it, and it has pins that can pop up, and it can actually raise up and print out lines of text that's on a web page, so people who need Braille to be able to read can feel the web page, and I think that's super cool. And I love learning about that kind of stuff, but yeah, I don't know, the situation's really weird because the reason that we're going through all of this ADA compliance training is the county that I lived in. The county got sued 3 times in the past year because we were slow to implement all the ADA compliant requirements, which I learned also today that the committee that came up with these requirements isn't enforcing them because that committee does not exist anymore. It was disbanded by the current administration, which that's not a good thing. So we have all of these laws and all of these rules that we need to abide to, but they're not being enforced because the committee there to enforce it doesn't exist anymore, but we can still get sued over it. And we also learned that, I don't know if this is just in the state of Florida or if this is everywhere, but in the state of Florida, plaintiff, the person filing the lawsuit, like the individual filing the lawsuit, cannot collect on discrimination lawsuits, things like that. Or for whatever category the ADA lawsuit's in, they cannot collect. Only the lawyers can collect, and the lawyers can collect lawyer fees, which is why there were so many lawsuits, which is really frustrating. So we have all of this training that we have to go through to make sure that we are ADA compliant so we don't get sued again. Don't ever work for county government. Just don't. It's way more trouble than it's worth. Just don't. I should go back to talking about sewing things because that's what everyone's here for, I assume. I don't know. I think I talked about pretty much everything that I want to talk about. So my personal plans for the next couple of months and what I want for this channel is, I talked about it earlier, but I don't know if it's going to make it in the edit. I want to have kind of a library of different patterns, and I want to sew through them. I want to go through making them so that I can kind of figure out where all the kinks are and where there have been some issues and where people have cut some corners so that I can fix them and tell you how I fixed them and how I went about it and what to watch out for. And, you know, for example, there's one pattern I was working on for the McCall's blouse and jumper where I think I say wait until you actually get to the, where I say wait until you get to the step where it says to sew on the collar and to actually cut out the collar, because you're going to have to double check and make measurements because things don't always line up properly. So that's what I want to do. So if anybody out there has any pattern that they want to see me sew through, whether it's because you want to sew through it yourself and you just want someone to go through it first so that you can kind of sew along, or if you can, you know, you can make me go through it and figure out what's wrong with it and where to fix things wherever you need to. Or if you just want to challenge me, like if you see a pattern that's like, oh my god, that's going to be a nightmare, I want to make Sam do that, just do it. The way that my job is laid out right now, I only work 3 days a week. That hopefully, knock on wood, will change in the next couple of months. But I have plenty of time to sit around and sew. So if there's anything you want me to do, or if there's any, like, techniques you want me to talk about, because I am most certainly not an expert. I've only been actually, like, really sewing clothes for the past couple of months. But I know my way around a sewing machine. I've made a lot of things before that. So if there's something you want me to kind of troubleshoot and work through for you, let me know. I'm also down to do like a beginner's sewing tips kind of video from somebody who's relatively a beginner, or from someone who's not a professional. So I'm totally down to do that. Because I feel like once you do anything as a professional, your view kind of shifts a little bit. So let me know if there's anything in particular you want me to see. Let me know if there's any, or if you liked this kind of video where I'm just kind of sitting and stitching and rambling on for you to keep in the background. So let me know if you like this and you want to see me do this. If there's really anything you want to see me do, let me know. I'm pretty open. All like, I don't know, 4 of you that watch my videos. So real quick before I sign off, I just want to show you kind of my hemming over here. So I don't know if you can see it, which hopefully you can't, but I learned from Angela Clayton, because this is how she hems pretty much everything, is that if you do really small stitches on the outside and you only catch a couple of the threads, you wind up with a nearly invisible hem, which is really nice for when you have like work slacks or things that you need. You're gonna definitely have to do more frequent stitches, because since they're only catching a few fibers of thread, they're not as strong as bigger stitches would. So you're going to have to do more of them, but it does give you a much cleaner finish. So I'm pretty much, I got three things done, which is very good for me. I'm glad I got this done. I've been procrastinating a lot, and it looks good to see my pile of stuff to work on go down a lot. So thank you for dealing with my unfortunately not drunk enough self. Drunk Sam is so much fun. Maybe one day you'll meet her. I don't know. So I have a couple other things that I'm going to work on. I filmed an intro. I don't know if the video is actually going to happen, but for Father's Day, I decided that I wanted to do just a whole bunch of random assorted crafts and a whole bunch of projects that I've been working on. I think I decided that the Simplicity, I'll give you a sneak peek, Simplicity 8654 I made these shorts from, and I have the top cut out, so I might stitch that together real quick. I think that's going to be its own dedicated video so that I can kind of archive it appropriately. But I have a bunch of other crafts and a bunch of other smaller projects that I'm kind of working on. I didn't get as much done this weekend as I wanted to, because I was really manic for a while and I was really inspired to do a whole bunch of stuff, and then I kind of crashed. That happens. You know, things aren't always productive all the time, so I might just kind of work on that over the next week or two and just upload all of it into one giant conglomerate. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. It's very different than anything else that's on my channel right now. Also, if you have like any ideas of things that you want to see me do, just in general, or if you want to see me take my channel in a different direction. So for this video that I'm going to upload, I'm trying to do this one more as a true tutorial and not just kind of as a talk through vlog kind of thing. So I go into a little bit more detail with this than I do all of my other videos. So when that comes out, let me know if that's something that you like. If you like the true tutorial style, or if you just want me to kind of talk through and vlog through things. Yeah, so just let me know. I'm very open to suggestions. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you also got some stuff done. I hope you made progress on whatever you're working on, or if for whatever reason you're just watching me just to watch me, thank you. What's wrong with you? But thank you. yeah, so I'm pretty happy with myself right now. Um, I think I'm supposed to tell you to like and subscribe and all that, but I don't get monetized, so that doesn't do anything for me. So if you just want to talk to me or if you have anything you want to say it in the comments below. Um, yeah, just, I guess, take it easy. Let me know if there's anything you want to see, and I'll talk to you soon.